The holidays are supposed to be comforting. Laughter in the kitchen, lights glowing in the window, children asleep dreaming of gifts. But winter hides things. Things that move quietly, beneath the snow. Things that wait not to be seen, but to be felt. Tonight, you'll hear 4 true stories. A man who smiled through the snow and left no tracks behind. A backseat intruder who used 2 stolen cars as bait. A woman who wandered into the wrong home and stood in the hallway at night. And a Christmas Eve visitor who wasn't Santa but still came inside. These aren't stories about ghosts. They're about people. People who slipped past the locks. People who watched from the shadows. People who knew when you were distracted. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and remember, while you're looking at the Christmas lights, someone else might be looking at you. Story 1. The Eyes in the Snow. There's something haunting about silence in the snow. Maybe it's the way it swallows sound, or how it makes the world feel frozen in time. But in my case, it was the eyes. Wide, still, and watching. This happened on Christmas Eve 2010. Back then I was 15, living with my parents in a quiet neighborhood just outside of Albany, New York. My dad was one of those guys who went all out for the holidays, strings of synchronized lights, reindeer displays, the whole deal. He loved making the house glow brighter than anyone else's on the block. That night it started snowing lightly, just enough to dust the ground like powdered sugar. My mom made hot chocolate, and we all watched Home Alone together. Everything felt perfect, safe, until I looked out the window. At first I didn't think much of it. Just a man standing on the sidewalk across the street. Still, silent. His face was hard to make out under the flickering Christmas lights. But something about the way he stood there made my stomach twist. He didn't move, didn't take out a phone, didn't light a cigarette. He just watched the house. I called out to my dad. He glanced, shrugged, and said, maybe it was a neighbor walking by. It's Christmas Eve, he said. People take walks to look at the lights. But I knew it wasn't that. I kept checking the window every few minutes. And every time he was still there, his eyes never leaving the house. Eventually, I went upstairs and tried to brush it off. But I couldn't sleep. That eerie image burned into my mind. Sometime around midnight, I got up to get a glass of water. Before I turned the hallway light on, I paused by the curtain and peeked outside again. He was closer now. Not on the sidewalk. In our yard. My heart started pounding. I leaned in to get a better look, and that's when I saw them. Footprints. Fresh ones stretching from the street, cutting through our yard, and stopping near the porch. The snow was undisturbed around them. No trail leading back out. Then, I saw him, standing dead still in our front yard, almost in the exact spot where we had that inflatable snowman. Except the snowman was gone, deflated and crumpled beside him like he had stepped on it. And he was staring straight up at my bedroom window. At me. His face. His face was stretched into the most unnatural smile I've ever seen. Like he was enjoying the fear. I stumbled back from the curtain and dropped my glass. The crash woke my dad, who rushed in thinking I'd hurt myself. I tried to explain, but by the time we got to the window, the yard was empty. We opened the door. Snow was still falling softly. The footprints were still there, but they led nowhere. No return path. And by the time we followed them to the edge of the woods behind our house, they just ended. It was like he'd vanished into thin air. My dad called the police. They came, looked around, said maybe it was a prank, suggested we leave the porch light on. That was it. But that wasn't the end of it. for weeks after I kept feeling eyes on me whenever I was home alone. One morning my mom found our mailbox open with a single snowman figurine placed inside. No note, no prints, just the figure smiling up. To this day I have no idea who that man was. The cops never found anyone. No neighbors saw him. No footprints were ever seen again. But every year on Christmas Eve when the snow starts falling just like it did that night, I can't help but check the yard. And some nights, if the light hits the trees just right, I swear I see a figure tall and still just watching. So if you ever find yourself alone during the holidays, and you notice footprints and fresh snow that stop right outside your window, don't assume they came from someone walking by, because sometimes they came from someone who stopped and stayed. Story 2. The haunted cars in the snow. There's something uniquely eerie about driving alone on an empty road during a snowstorm. It's quiet. Too quiet. No insects, no footsteps. Just the crunch of your tires on snow and the rhythmic beat of your windshield wipers slicing through the silence. This happened to me on Christmas night in 2021. I work in healthcare, so holidays are rarely days off. That year I got stuck with the Christmas night shift at a hospital in upstate New York. I clocked out around 11:30 p.m. completely exhausted, just looking forward to the short drive home and a couple hours of sleep. The roads were empty. Fresh snow blanketed everything untouched, pure like the world had pressed pause. The only other signs of life were the occasional passing snowplow humming in the distance like a ghost in the fog. Then I hit a red light at a quiet intersection near a residential neighborhood. And that's when I saw them. 2 cars stopped dead just ahead of the light, one behind the other. Their engines running but no brake lights, no movement. I waited and waited. When the light turned green, they didn't move. At first, I thought maybe there had been an accident, but there was no damage, no one stepping out, no hazard lights, just silence. I gave a quick honk. Nothing. Rolled down my window. Tried again, still nothing. I looked around. The neighborhood was completely dark, not a single window lit up. Something about it felt wrong. Too still. Too staged. Eventually, I pulled over, grabbed my flashlight from the glove box, and walked up to the first car. I knocked on the driver's window. No reaction. I bent down to peer inside. Empty. I checked the second car. Also empty. Both cars were running doors locked but completely deserted. That's when I felt it. A presence. Like someone watching me. I spun around and saw him. A man. Standing on the sidewalk a few feet away. He was wearing a hoodie with the hood pulled low and jeans that looked too thin for the weather. He had no gloves, no hat, nothing reflective, and he wasn't shivering. He just stared. I blinked, and he was gone. I don't mean he walked away, I mean he vanished. 1 second he was there, the next, nothing. I scanned the snow-covered street for footprints, for any sign of movement. Nothing. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I backed toward my car, breathing hard. I locked the doors the moment I got inside. And that's when the police cruiser pulled up behind me. The officer stepped out, and I rushed to tell him everything: the 2 empty cars, the man who had vanished, the feeling that something was off. He listened calmly, nodding, and asked for my license and registration. As I leaned over to grab them from the glove box, I noticed his eyes fixate on the back seat. He took a step forward, and then he shouted, "Don't move! Don't you move!" I froze. My heart slammed against my chest as I turned slowly to look. There was someone in my back seat. A man curled up on the floor, half concealed under my jacket, wearing the same hoodie I'd seen on the sidewalk. He wasn't moving, just lying there, staring up at the ceiling like he was in some kind of trance. The officer opened the back door and yanked him out. The guy didn't resist, didn't scream, didn't say a word. They cuffed him right there on the spot. No ID, no explanation. Just a small switchblade in his pocket and a folded piece of notebook paper that read, "Wait until he's parked." The police later told me both the abandoned cars were stolen. They believe they were used to block the intersection to force someone to stop. Like bait. And I was the catch. To this day, I have no idea how he got into my car. I'd locked the doors. I'd checked. The officer thinks he slipped in while I was inspecting the vehicles, maybe crouched behind the second car, and snuck in when my door was open. All I know is this. He was in there, silently waiting, while I stood just feet away, completely unaware that I'd brought danger into the car with me. So now every time I drive at night, especially during winter, I check the back seat. I lock my doors religiously. And I never stop for strange cars on quiet roads. Because sometimes the real danger isn't what's blocking your path. It's what's already sitting behind you, waiting for the right moment to move. Story 3. The Stranger in the Duplex. During the holidays. There's something comforting about the holidays. Warm lights in the window, music drifting through the rooms, that feeling of being home. But sometimes, even in the coziest places, something quietly, deeply wrong can slip through the cracks. This happened to my girlfriend and me 2 years ago when we moved into a small duplex in Queens, New York, right before Christmas. We were in our mid-20s. She had just landed a remote job. I worked evenings. The place was small, nothing fancy, but it had charm: an old brick exterior, creaky wood floors, and big windows that let the afternoon light flood in. It felt safe, quiet. Our only neighbors were 2 older women who lived in the unit next door, sisters, I think. They kept to themselves. Polite, a little distant. We rarely spoke more than a wave or two when getting the mail. It started with something simple. We were setting up decorations one evening, just the 2 of us, wine in hand. Christmas music playing softly when I heard it. Click, jingle, twist. Someone was trying to open our front door. At first, I thought it was just the mail slot rattling from the wind. But then the doorknob actually turned slowly, deliberately. I froze. I looked through the peephole. No one. But just as I turned away, I caught the edge of someone walking down the steps in a slow shuffle. A woman, gray coat, short hair, hunched over, moving almost like she was half asleep. I opened the door. "Can I help you?" No answer. She didn't even turn around. Just kept walking down the sidewalk, disappearing around the side of the house. I chalked it up to confusion. Maybe she had the wrong door. But that wasn't the end of it. A few nights later, I came home from work a little past midnight. My girlfriend was asleep. I locked the door behind me, tossed my bag on the couch, and went to grab something to eat. That's when I noticed it. A faint light, barely visible, coming from the hallway. It was the kind of light you only get when a door is slightly cracked, and someone's standing behind it. I called out, "Babe, you awake?" No response. I stepped toward the hallway, and that's when I saw her. A woman, sitting on our living room couch. She didn't move, didn't look up. Just sat there rocking slightly, whispering something under her breath. I stood frozen, my brain trying to register what I was looking at. She looked to be in her 60s. Her eyes were foggy. Her hands trembled as she clutched a small photo frame, one of ours, from the shelf. When I finally found my voice, I asked, "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" She didn't answer. Just kept mumbling, almost in a prayer-like tone. My girlfriend came running down the stairs seconds later, her face pale as a sheet. She recognized her immediately. It was the older sister of the woman next door. Apparently, she had been living with her quietly, and she had advanced dementia along with something called sundowning, a condition where symptoms get worse at night. Confusion, wandering, disorientation. She had come in through the back door, which must have been unlocked, slipped in, sat down, and somehow gone unnoticed in our house. It gets worse. Later that night, we reviewed the footage on the cheap indoor camera we had just set up in the kitchen. It had motion detection. We watched in silence as the screen lit up. 2:17 a.m. She opened our bedroom door. Our bedroom door. She didn't come in, thank God. Just stood there, watching us sleep, and then turned and walked away. We called the police, and eventually her sister came over in tears to bring her back. She apologized over and over, explaining that it had happened before, just not like this. She'd usually wander around their own home. She begged us not to press charges, and we didn't. But that night changed something for me, because it wasn't about violence. She didn't hurt anyone. She didn't even speak. But the idea that someone, a complete stranger, could be in your house watching you, breathing the same air while you sleep, that sticks with you. We replaced the locks the next morning, bought a proper security system, installed motion lights, and I still check the door 3 times before going to bed. Because the truth is, not every intruder breaks in through the window. Some just walk in, quietly, and wait. Story 4. A Christmas Eve intruder beneath the glow of holiday lights. There's something magical about Christmas Eve when you have young children. The lights, the cookies, the anticipation, the belief that just for one night something truly good is coming down the chimney. But sometimes, something else gets in. This happened to me in 2022. I'm a father of 2, Kelsey and Noah, ages 6 and 8 at the time. My wife and I had gone all out that year. Wrapped gifts, strung lights, even staged some fake Santa boot prints near the fireplace to really sell the magic. That night, after a chaotic day of sugar-fueled excitement, we finally got the kids to bed by 10:30 p.m. My wife and I sat on the couch for a bit, sipping wine, unwinding in the glow of the tree. The house felt peaceful, still. The kind of quiet you only get once a year. Around midnight, we finally went up to bed. Sometime around 2:00 a.m., I felt a soft tug at my blanket. It was Kelsey. She whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "Daddy, Santa's here." I heard him. I smiled in the dark, kissed her forehead, told her to go back to sleep or she'd scare him away. She giggled and tiptoed back to her room. A few minutes later, I heard a creak from downstairs. I sighed, assuming Kelsey had snuck down to peek at the presents again. It wouldn't have been the first time. I slipped out of bed, trying not to wake my wife, and headed quietly down the stairs. But when I reached the living room, she wasn't there. The gifts were untouched. The plate of cookies still full. Nothing had moved. What had changed was the back door. It was wide open. Not just unlocked open. A wave of cold air hit me like a warning. The Christmas lights outside swayed gently in the wind. And that's when I felt it. Something wasn't right. Not at all. I immediately checked the kids' rooms. Noah was fast asleep. Kelsey was lying awake, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling. I knelt beside her bed. "Sweetheart, were you downstairs just now?" She shook her head slowly. "No. I told you. Santa was." I didn't know what to say. I checked every window, every lock, every room. Nothing was missing. No signs of forced entry. But I couldn't shake the feeling someone had been inside. Later that day, I went to review the security camera by the back patio. We'd only had it for a few months, and I hadn't checked the app in a while. At first, nothing. Then, around 1:57 a.m., just minutes before Kelsey woke me up, I saw it. A man, standing by the edge of our backyard. No mask, no bag, just watching the house. He didn't move for nearly 5 minutes. Then slowly he stepped toward the back door, and out of frame. There was no footage of him leaving. I still get chills when I think about it. He didn't steal anything, didn't take a single gift. All he did was stand in our home, in the living room, in silence, and vanish. I called the police, filed a report. They checked the area but didn't find anyone. Said it might have been a drifter, but there were no footprints around the house, just the ones leading in. We changed the locks that week, installed deadbolts, replaced the cameras. But that Christmas left a mark. Because while most parents worry about eating the cookies or hiding the wrapping paper, I learned there are worse things than your kid catching you pretending to be Santa. It's realizing that someone else, someone you didn't invite, already played the role. And for a few minutes beneath the glow of holiday lights, you weren't the only one watching your family sleep. 4 stories. 4 reminders that even in the most joyful time of year, something darker can slip in unnoticed. A man who stood beneath your bedroom window. A figure who waited in your back seat, silent and ready. An old woman watching you sleep from just beyond the door. And someone, no mask, no sound, who stood in your living room while your family slept upstairs. No forced entry, no violence, just presence. And sometimes, that's worse. Because now you know, not every intruder breaks a window. Some walk right through the snow and leave no trail behind. Some sit beneath your bed just beyond the edge of your sight. Some wait for the lights to go out. So this holiday season, check the locks, close the blinds, and if the snow outside looks undisturbed, look again. Because if you ever see footprints that only lead one way, they didn't come to pass by. They came to stay.